Things continue at the Shinsekai headquarters, the Way of Karate. We can see a man drenched in his own sweat, and that man is none other than Katsumi. He practices his karate technique on a sandbag and hits it with several consecutive blows in mere seconds. With that simple attack, the sandbag begins to burn with the immense heat from Katsumi's attack. He reveals to be actually letting out his frustration on the sandbag as he was insulted by Yujiro. When the 8 fighters went to see Pickle, their Yujiro mocked Katsumi, saying that nobody wanted to be around him, including him, Baki, and Katsumi's father. Although Katsumi is hurt by that comment, he knows that Yujiro is right, and even everyone else senses that too. Although his father Dappo made him the chairman of this karate dojo, he knows that he isn't good enough to have deserved this position. As Shinseki is the largest karate school of Nippon, Katsumi feels that he doesn't have the abilities needed to be the chairman. He doesn't have any greatness, legends, and history in him like his father does. To have a legacy like his father, Katsumi realizes that he needs to do something unthinkable, so he decides to fight the primitive man Pickle. Right then, the subordinate of his gives him a call telling him that he has located Pickle out on the streets of the city and has even destroyed a truck. Realizing that Pickle has escaped, Katsumi thinks things cannot get better for him, as he was just wondering how he was going to find Pickle. He thanks God for giving him this opportunity and decides to prepare well for the inevitable fight coming soon. The next morning, Katsumi tells his apprentices about Pickle's escape and expresses his yearning to take revenge for the Sea King Ritsu by killing Pickle once and for all. In order to do so, Katsumi tells them that the 55 members of his karate school must find Pickle by searching everywhere in Tokyo before the police officers does. Additionally, Katsumi orders his subordinate to notify the chiefs of all of the 220 branches of the karate school in Tokyo so that they can gather every member to have a better chance at finding Pickle. Katsumi knows that this time winning or losing isn't going to be a factor, and the only thing important for them is to take action quickly. On the other side, a peculiar guy sees Pickle, and not recognizing him as the primitive man, the peculiar guy asks him how he has such great physique. The peculiar man tells Pickle that he has just the right girl for him to spend the night with and asks him $20 for it. Unfortunately, Pickle doesn't understand what he is saying, so the guy thinks he is just shy and proceeds to take him to the hotel. But before he can do that, Terada stops him and tells him to leave Pickle with him. However, the peculiar dude realizes that he has no business with Pickle, so he gets suspicious of him and asks him what his true intention is. Meanwhile, Dappo visits his son Katsumi, who is in the middle of meditating. Katsumi realizes that his father is here to stop him from fighting Pickle, so he tells his father to not interfere in his business. Dappo knows that there is no chance of Katsumi defeating Pickle, so he thinks that his son is making a terrible mistake. But Katsumi doesn't want to hear his father's opinion and makes it clear to him that as the chairman of the Shinzaki Karate Dojo, he gets to make the decisions now, so Dappo decides to beat some sense into his son. On the other side, the bulky guy Torito reveals to be a member of the Shinsekai Karate Dojo and explains that he and his gang members are here to fight Pickle. Torito then tries to escort Pickle somewhere else, but a man in white interrupts him. Torito recognizes the man in white as Hanayama and realizes that he is here to fight Pickle too. Hanayama tells Terada and his gang members to back off, as he wants to be the one to fight Pickle. But Torito can't go against the orders of the chairman, Katsumi, so Hanayama makes his assassin subordinate fight Terada. Subsequently, the assassin's knife deflects and flies to Pickle's direction, but before he can catch the knife, Hanayama grabs it first, making Pickle realize that this guy is strong like Ritsu. Pickle still tries to take back the knife from Hanayama, and a battle of who has more strength can take the knife between the two begins. Unfortunately, the knife breaks before we could see who has more strength than the other. On the other side, Katsumi defeats his father Dappo with a cheap secret move, as he needs to quickly end this match, so that he can go to the place where Pickle is. Pickle gets a bit serious and hits Hanayama with a strong punch, knocking him out. His assassin subordinates gets furious, seeing his boss being treated like a toy, so he tries to retaliate, but before he can even touch Pickle, Pickle shatters his arm completely and then walks away, implying that he isn't interested in killing weaklings. The fighters of Shinsekai Karate Dojo get stunned, seeing how unbelievably strong Pickle is, and that fear makes them stay where they are even when their goal is to fight him. However, Torito musters up some courage and comes to fight Pickle to hold him back for just long enough for Katsumi to come there. so Pickle knocks him out with one slap to the head. Hanayama gets up again to stop Pickle, so Pickle tries to push him away like last time, but this time he fails to overpower Hanayama and that shocks him. Pickle compares the strength of Hanayama to a full-grown Triceratops and finally begins to think of him worthy of a rival. Hanayama realizes that Pickle is no longer looking down on him, so he begins to push Pickle the opposite way by using more power and strength. Hanayama has only gained his god-like strength due to his kindness, duty, obligation, promises, and most importantly because of the power of friendship. Pickle realizes that his rivals are nothing compared to Hanayama's god-like inner strength, so he gets happy as he has finally met someone worthy of fighting with his true strength. But before Pickle gets into his beast mode, Hanayama stops him and reveals that he is not here to fight him and instead it will be Baki Hanma who is standing right behind him. Everyone present there gets shocked seeing the Baki Hanma flesh and gets excited knowing that things are about to get interesting. Baki stares at Pickle for a moment and calls him beautiful and exquisite. From Baki's prospecting, anything honed for one purpose alone, stripped of everything superfluous, is beautiful. And since Pickle's purpose of living is to fight, Baki thinks he is the most beautiful being ever. Baki apologizes to Pickle for his sudden visit and explains that when he heard from Tokugawa that Pickle had escaped, Baki couldn't resist his urge to see him, so he requested Hanayama to get him to meet him. Pickle senses what Baki is trying to say and comes forward for a fist bump that he previously learned from Baki's father Yujiro. Baki, thinking that Pickle is acting friendly, also goes for a fist bump, but as his fist touches with Pickle's fists, he rolls on the ground and it's revealed that Pickle has learned Yujiro's move just by feeling it once. Baki wonders how someone so ancient can be a master of the modern martial art of Aikido, and that gets him excited to fight Pickle. He doesn't resist his urge any longer and goes for a kick to Pickle's head. Baki then immediately apologizes, explaining that his kick wasn't intentional. Pickle doesn't react, begins to walk toward the opposite direction, and looks at Bako, implying that he wants Baki to follow him. So Baki and Hanayama both follows Pickle somewhere else. Later, Katsumi learns from his subordinates about what happened earlier and gets disappointed hearing that Pickle is gone once again. However, this is not a bad thing according to him, as he believes his original goal is still active because if Hanayama and Baki defeats Pickle, his goal to take revenge for the Sea King Ritsu will still be achieved. Katsumi is subordinate. Sakamura thinks that he is being too generous and tells him that this is not about Ritsu anymore. Pickle has also put his hands on Terada, so he thinks Katsumi should be the one to fight Pickle. However, Sakamura himself realizes that he is speaking too much out of his turn, so he apologizes to Katsumi. Katsumi asks Sakamura if he thinks Katsumi will be able to even defeat Pickle by himself. Seeing Sakamura hesitate, Katsumi gets his answer. Katsumi gets in despair and calls himself the hopeless, spoiled son of other great legendary master Doppo. Katsumi finally realizes that this is a losing battle, so he apologizes his subordinates for dragging them in this too. Still, Katsumi wants to avenge Ritsu, so he again asks his subordinates to help him defeat Pickle, as he can't do it alone. On the other side, Pickle reveals to have taken Baki and Hanayama back to the stadium where he was once locked in. Tokugawa scolds Pickle for escaping this place, but even he knows that Pickle isn't going to listen to him anyway. Baki asks Pickle why he has brought him here. Instead of Pickle, Tokugawa answers him because it's obvious that Pickle wants to fight Baki is this place as the battleground. Baki gets excited as he has been longing to fight Pickle as well, so he takes off his shirt to fight him. However, Hanayama tells Baki to not make the same mistake as he did 5 years ago. Baki apologizes to him for causing trouble for so many innocent people in the past. But now, Baki wants to have a little fun again, and that's why he wants to fight Pickle, even if it's a stupid idea. Pickle kicks him in the gut, sending him flying to the stands of the stadium, making him realize that this is indeed a stupid idea. Pickle then begins to dance, and Hanayama realizes that it's his victory dance against the Son of Ogre, who got defeated with one single blow. Katsumi begins to train his grip strength by walking with only his thumb fingers so that he can get even more stronger when suddenly Ritsu comes to his dojo to tell him about the rumor he has heard recently. Ritsu asks Katsumi if he truly intends to get revenge for the sake of him, and he thinks that it's absurd for Katsumi to think he can beat someone who is even stronger than Ritsu. Katsumi knows that he is making a mistake, but he cannot help but want to avenge his master, as it was only thanks to Ritsu that he is currently standing here. However, Ritsu realizes that Katsumi actually wants to fight with Pickle just to see how strong he is. Just like the other martial arts masters, Ritsu doesn't believe that Katsumi's karate will be enough to defeat the primitive man as his own. For 1,000 years of mystic kung fu arts also failed to do so. Still, Katsumi remains determined, so Ritsu decides to teach him some kung fu so that he stands a better chance against Pickle, and additionally, Ritsu decides to bestow down his entire kung fu heritage to Katsumi so that he can carry on the legacy of the ancient art. However, Katsumi only wants to carry on the legacy of his original martial arts karate. So Ritsu respects his decision and decides to help him perfect his karate instead. Meanwhile, Baki lays down in his room and it is revealed that the mark of the kick by Pickle is still visible on his stomach. He wonders what his father would think of his failure and mimics his father Yujiro's possible comment, saying back he suffered a pathetic defeat because he went out to find Pickle not prepared to fight, and didn't have any purpose behind it, and although he is my son, I feel disgusted by his lack of prudence. At Tokugawa's mansion, Yujiro actually learns about Baki's failure and gets disappointed to learn that his only son has turned out to be a pathetic loser. Tokugawa tries to make an excuse, saying Baki did everything he could and did well. However, Yujiro doesn't think it's enough and tells Tokugawa not to take the loser's side here. He calms down and tells Tokugawa that because Baki has now encountered the primitive man, he believes that Baki will probably come for another rematch. Speaking of Baki, he is still thinking about how much his father is scolding him right now, but what is taking away his sleep is the kick that hit him. And he explains that the kick by Pickle alone gave him more pleasure than any girl in the world. Baki thinks that the kick was a sign of friendship and believes that he and Pickle are now buddies. He realizes that if he trains with Pickle, he might be able to finally surpass the ogre's and Yujiro's strength, and maybe he will finally get the chance to revenge his mother. Meanwhile, at the Shinshikai Karate School, Ritsu begins practicing some of Katsumi's secret karate moves. First, Ritsu practices the infamous Mach Punch, where he explains that the power of the punch is generated by the big toes in two places, accelerated by the ankles, and then further accelerated by both knees, then by the hips and lumbars, and that power goes through the spine to the shoulders and finally reaches the wrists, and the fist delivering the ultimate blow. Ritsu knows that Katsumi used this very move once when fighting Hanayama in the previous seasons, and seeing that sent a chill up his spine. Ritsu remembers that back then he tried to insult karate, saying his kung fu surpassed Katsumi's technique about 2,000 years ago. Although Ritsu feels bad for being arrogant, he again tells Katsumi that that is still the truth, as he believes kung fu is the superior martial arts technique because he has achieved many victories thanks to the technique that he has cultivated in the long history of kung fu. Ritsu believes that there is only one person who has mastered the move, so he thinks that Katsumi should also be the one to master it so that he can stand a chance against Pickle. On the other side, Pain has brought 140 dozen barrels of chloroform and explains that it has 1.5 times the weight of normal air. Pain reveals that he used all of these barrels of chloroform on Pickle by surprise and filled the entire stadium grounds with it to put Pickle to sleep. Pain tells Tokugawa that he only did this so that Pickle doesn't escape like the last time. But Pain doesn't think that only this measure would be enough to contain the primitive man, and decides to build an urgent facility that can properly contain him. Pain tells both the captain and Tokugawa that they cannot forget their incredible fortune in encountering this miraculous specimen, which is Pickle, and must do what is needed, as that is their responsibility. The captain knows that, without a doubt, Pickle is a super-class S-rank research specimen. But even he knows that at the very end, Pain should not make him his guinea pig, since Pickle is also a human being with a personality and feelings. So he tells Pain not to treat Pickle as if he were some kind of research sample. Tokugawa also agrees with the captain and comes up with an idea that would no longer take them any need to lock Pickle inside a facility. He claims that Pickle won't leave the stadium ever, because after he kicked Baki during the few hours before he was put to sleep with the chloroform, he didn't make a single move to leave. Even though Pickle has the strength to burst down a steel door, he stayed here of his own accord. So Tokugawa believes that Pickle thinks of this place as an oasis, as he gets to fight the people who resemble the dinosaurs of his Jurassic era. So Tokugawa thinks that Pickle believes that as long as he stays here, he will never run out of food or companions. So Tokugawa is convinced that when Pickle wakes up from his sleep, he won't try to escape unless he gets to fight more strong people like Ritsu, Hanayama, and Baki. Pickle wakes up from his sleep, even when he is covered by the dense chloroform fog, which doesn't surprise Pain anymore. Pickle then looks around and Tokugawa realizes that he is actually looking for food or someone to play with. So Tokugawa tells Pickle to wait a little longer and promises him that he will bring him his food and a friend. In addition, Tokugawa tells Pickle to go back to sleep, but Pain doesn't think that Pickle understands anything that Tokugawa is saying. But Pickle proves him wrong and willingly goes back to sleep to wait until someone formidable shows up. Meanwhile, Baki clenches his fists hard and reveals that inside his fists is a piece of newspaper. He reveals that before he could never hide a single page of a newspaper, but now he is able to completely hide it inside his fists, so that makes him believe that he has grown stronger, and he takes an oath to let out his newfound strength the next time he gets a chance to fight Pickle. On the other hand, Ritsu and Katsumi watch a clip of a bullet, and Katsumi shows Ritsu that the bullet in the clip is creating shock waves as it moves forward. Katsumi explains that just like a wave of a bullet, similar lines appear on jet airplanes, proving that it has reached Mach speed. Apparently only gunpowder or jet engines can achieve that supersonic Mach speed. So to achieve the same speed on the Mach punch, Katsumi reveals that they would need a special black whip. He explains that if the leather rope is used just right, the tip of the whip can break even Mach speed. Katsumi even demonstrates it to Ritsu, and the hit of the whip makes a deafening crack noise, implying that it has reached supersonic speed. Katsumi then films the movement of the whip and watches it on super slow motion with Ritsu. Katsumi sees that the widening circle the whip makes is the moment that the tip breaks the Mach speed, so that it would soon now finally understands the motion. Katsumi now demonstrates the same technique of the whip by using his bare hands to complete the Mach punch. First he fully uses his 10 joints, stretches both of his legs to almost 180-degree angle, and then twists each joints and also the backbone of his spine to accelerate his speed and breaks Mach speed with his punch. Katsumi then asks Ritsu if his Mach punch would be enough to pierce through Pickle's thick muscle tissue. Ritsu still doesn't think it will be enough, and he believes that the Mach punch can be improved even more. He explains there is potential for adding even more speed and weight to his fist. Katsumi claims to already know that, and this time he even uses his head to increase the speed of his Mach punch. Ritsu is left impressed and finally understands why people once called Katsumi the lethal weapon. It is all thanks to Katsumi's father Dappo, as he is even mightier than Katsumi. Ritsu knows the story of a Japanese man who once upon a time traveled to the People's Republic of China. That Japanese man fought numerous matches against many martial artists and came out victorious every time. That man was Dappo Orochi, and he became famous and all over China for his strength. When Dappo returned to his own country, he visited a circus and saw a child performer there. Seeing the child, Dappo became sympathetic and purchased him from the circus. However, Dappo was also intimidated by the skills of the child and realized that one day the kid would surpass his own. That was the main reason he bought the boy from the circus, to make him his ally. That child is none other than Katsumi, and he feels glad that he was adopted by Dappo. Ritsu tells him that he has deserved it, since he is now a perfect weapon who can even strike at supersonic speed. A certain individual reveals having eavesdropped on their conversation and finally shows himself to them. Ritsu gets surprised to see that it was Master Kaku, who is the only person who mastered Kung Fu other than him. Ritsu asks Kaku why he came here without any prior notice, and tells him that if he had contacted him, he would have personally come to the airport to escort him here. Katsumi asks Ritsu who this old small man is, and Ritsu introduces him as the great master of Kung Fu, who is 146 years old. After the introduction, Kaku tells Katsumi that the Mach punch he is referring to as perfect as below average to him. He tells both Katsumi and Ritsu that there are other ways to achieve perfection, and gives them an egg attached to a thin rope, so that he can show them what is the real perfect Mach punch. He takes his position, and at the blink of an eye he slices the egg and eats the yolk inside. Kaku then explains that one can gain more speed than a bullet if they use all of their bones to accelerate their speed. So after learning the technique, Katsumi begins to practice the Mach punch, but he isn't satisfied even with the increased speed. He recalls Kaku's instructions, and according to him, the speed should have no limits, because one could just imagine increasing their bone structure to increase their overall speed. So Katsumi imagines increasing his bones joints, and with the power of anime he finally achieves the same speed as Kaku. Meanwhile, Ritsu and Dappo treats Master Kaku to a grand dinner. But the dinner doppel asks Kaku why he is interested in his foolish son, who doesn't even know what he is doing. Ritsu claims that Katsumi is not the same person as before, and that he has turned out to be quite powerful. Kaku, who also believes that Katsumi is a natural genius and he probably has already surpassed him in mastering the Mott Punch, but is in fact true, as Katsumi has broken all limits and with his one single punch, he shatters all of the window glasses of the building. His subordinates see the building shaking and comes there to see if something happened to their master, but Katsumi assures them that everything is fine. On the other hand, Baki decides to have a practice battle with an imaginary opponent to train himself, and that imaginary enemy is a dinosaur. While jogging in the streets, Katsumi remembers the conversation he had with Tokugawa moments earlier. As he finally feels ready, he requests Tokugawa to give him a chance to fight Pickle. Tokugawa is surprised to hear his wish and asks him if he knows what fighting Pickle means. Katsumi already knows that if he fights Pickle, there's a good chance he will get eaten by him if he loses to him. Still, Katsumi wants to take that risk and again requests Tokugawa to let him be Pickle's food. After some persuasion, Tokugawa finally agrees, but gives him two conditions, one that the fight will start at 6 a.m. in the morning and the other that it will be held at the stadium. Katsumi, of course, agrees to the conditions and is now actually running to the stadium to fight Pickle. Once he reaches the stadium, Katsumi finds his mother standing next to Tokugawa. He asks his mother what she is doing here, and she explains that she cannot miss her son's final battle, since this is an important match. Katsumi's mother also claims to have invited the person who is most important to him, but Katsumi doesn't care who she has invited, as the most important person is actually his mother. So he hugs her, telling her not to worry about him. After that interaction, his mother leaves the place, bidding her goodbyes when the person she invited reveals themselves. It's another woman who Katsumi recognizes at first glance as his birth mother. He remembers 15 years ago at the circus show when Doppo bought him for a lot of money. Apparently, Doppo was amazed when he visited that circus when he saw 5-year-old Prodigy's physical ability and talent. At that circus event, Katsumi's actual father died in an accident while doing a stunt with a lion. So Doppo and his wife bought Katsumi from his birth mother and began taking care of him and raising him. Coming back to the present, Katsumi hugs his birth mother even though he should be despising her for selling him to a stranger, but Katsumi feels no hate towards her, as he is glad that he now has two mothers instead of one beside him, and happily enters the stadium. Before he enters the arena, he sees a Baki drenched in his own blood standing against the wall. Baki looks at Katsumi and smiles, implying that he just finished the fight with the imaginary dinosaur. Baki tells Katsumi that he will go fight Pickle after him, when he feels kinda jealous that Katsumi gets to be the first one to fight Pickle. However, Katsumi is glad that he is the first one, as he believes that he should be the only one to fight him. After passing through Baki, Katsumi sees that his father, Doppo, is literally blocking his path. Katsumi ignores Doppo and proceeds to walk to the arena, telling his father that he needs not to worry about him. As he reaches the arena, Katsumi activates a technique called Sei. Sei is a straight mid-level strike, which is the most basic of the fundamentals of Japanese karate. Its existence is more than a technique, and it is the very symbol of art itself. That symbol now gathers in a group of 55,000 and is rained down on Katsumi as everyone is assembled here at the stadium to inspire their young leader. A single punch from these 55,000 apprentices combines into a huge shockwave and hits Katsumi, making his heart shiver. He feels the burden as he now realizes that he cannot afford to lose anymore and approaches Pickle. As Pickle comes out of his locked room like an angry bull, Katsumi doesn't waste his time at all and blasts Pickle with many Mott punches. He hits the jaw, the chest, the ribs, and most importantly the groin to make sure that he has a greater advantage, but all the vital hits do no harm to Pickle, as he doesn't give off any single expression of pain and comes to attack Katsumi again. So Katsumi kicks him in the nuts again and then immediately follows up with a knee kick to the jaw. Seeing his attacks, Tokugawa realizes that Katsumi is no longer the same weakling as before and has become a lot longer. Baki also recognizes that and wonders if he can surpass Katsumi, let alone Pickle, in strength. Pickle begins to smile with his mouth wide open, implying that he feels happy having such a strong opponent, or rather a strong prey. Ritsu realizes that these attacks won't be enough to take down the greatest fighter of the Jurassic era of dinosaurs, so he hopes for Katsumi to survive. Pickle hits Katsumi with a kick like a dump truck and deals a lot of damage with that one attack. Katsumi struggles to get up and begins to tremble in pain, but with the power of friendship, he again gains the courage to stand up. But Pickle's smile disappears as he no longer considers Katsumi as his opponent and has elevated him from his plaything to his food. In the Jurassic era, Pickle only ate the mightiest of enemies, and the lone continued to defy the law that was defined by God in the midst of the lawlessness. It was only his ruling, and he soon became the king amongst the dinosaurs. And now, as another mighty enemy stands in front of Pickle, he takes the same stance that he once used to beat the dinosaurs. Baki recognizes the stance as the same as his father's Yujiro and wonders how they resemble each other so much. Ritsu asks Master Kaku if he thinks Katsumi will survive, and in reply Kaku explains that if he were in the place of Katsumi, he would try to stop Pickle's heart as he thinks that is the only way to defeat him. It's as if Katsumi has heard what Kaku just said and he goes for his most powerful machine punch on Pickle's chest to stop his heart. Pickle begins to feel pain finally and compares this attack by Katsumi to the swing of the steel tail of his rival T-Rex. The Mach punch creates such a shockwave that it shakes the entire stadium and everyone gazes their eyes at Pickle to see if he finally took some damage. As Pickle falls on his knees, the crowd cheers for Katsumi, assuming that the battle is now over. Pickle, for the first time in the 190 million years of his life, has felt an unfamiliar pain in his belly, and that deadly strike makes him salivate uncontrollably. However, Katsumi knows that if Pickle stands up again, he is as good as dead, because since Katsumi used the Mach punch at the maximum speed, he destroyed his delicate fists. But Katsumi is happy as he almost got the upper hand on the strongest fighter of humanity, and with a smile he kicks Pickle on the face as he starts standing up. Then Katsumi uses the other uninjured arm with another blazing hot Mach punch at Pickle's face and knocks Pickle out completely, as Pickle falls flat on the ground this time. Everyone in the stands cheers for Katsumi and screams in victory. However, the battle is far from over and Katsumi has destroyed his own 2 arms and 1 leg to hit those deadly attacks. Baki and Tokugawa wonder why Katsumi's fist got destroyed, so the mad scientist Pain comes to do the explanation and tells both of them that once something breaks the sound barrier, the burden of the acceleration makes the object and the machine speed fail to withstand the less to zero resistance of air. And in a similar way, before Katsumi's punch reached Pickle, his hands started to destroy because they couldn't withstand the resistance of the air barrier. Baki realizes that it's over for Katsumi as Pickle is starting to recover and will soon get up. Pickle, with an evil smile on his face, gets up to feed on his prey and Baki wonders if there is even a way to defeat this primitive man. Pain tells Maki that these martial artists made no mistakes in attacking Pickle, but since Pickle is from the Jurassic era, he is used to these blows as he fought the primitive beings every single day of his life. Ritsu sees that Pickle is taking the same stance that he used to deliver the final blow to him at their match. Katsumi looks at his subordinates who are in disbelief and begins to laugh as he fails to defeat the primitive man even though he made no mistakes with his attacks. But Katsumi tells everyone not to worry, as he still claims to have a trump card up his sleeve, so he stands up and prepares to strike his final attack. But Pickle dashes towards him at bullet speed and then he uses a Mach punch again on Pickle, but this time the delivery is more like whipping Pickle with his fingers. Because of the whip-like attack, it created more shock waves and thus Pickle once again fell flat on the ground. But because of that reckless attack, Katsumi's right arm muscle tears completely and the only things left in his hands are his bones. But Katsumi doesn't feel any pain as he is the one left standing and holding his hands high, showing his victory to everyone. Everyone once again cheers for their leader and even Master Kaku and Baki get amazed at such remarkable talent. Katsumi bows to everyone expressing his gratitude and he gets much respect in return. However, Katsumi soon realizes that he actually failed to knock out Pickle and he is actually asleep. As he sees Pickle rolling over on the ground, Baki wonders why Pickle fell asleep if he wasn't defeated and the scientist's Pain again comes to give him an explanation, telling him that since Pickle is a primitive man, he thought his prey's life was already over as he saw Katsumi's bone sticking out hand, so he went to sleep to wait for his opponent to die. Naturally, Katsumi notices that Pickle is crying in the middle of his sleep, and that makes him remember what Tokugawa once told him. Apparently Pickle only cries for his strong opponents because he loves them, and because of his love, he eats them and bids farewell. Katsumi feels proud as the strongest man, since the very existence of the earth has acknowledged him as a mighty opponent, and because of that he finally thinks that all of his efforts have paid off and gets in tears of happiness. So he wants to repay Pickle for giving him such privileges and decides to sacrifice himself by being eaten by the primitive man. Pickle gets up from his sleep with tears in his eyes, implying that he is about to eat Katsumi. Everyone, including Kaku, can't bear to see what's coming, but what's inevitable is inevitable. Katsumi accepts his death and tells Pickle to take his life without any hesitation. So Pickle, in the blink of an eye, bites on the right arm of Katsumi and completely rips it off. Katsumi turns around and sees his arm inside Pickle's mouth. He begins to lose his consciousness because of immense loss of blood and once again tells Pickle that he has deserved to eat him as he falls on the ground and waits to be eaten. Pickle comes there to eat the rest of Katsumi, but the noble soft-hearted elder doesn't allow it like last time with Ritsu and commands his hidden snipers to shoot and tranquilize Pickle. However, Dappo doesn't like the fact that Tokugawa is going against the rules and forces him to order his gunmen to put their gun down. Dappo explains to him that saving his son today will only bring shame to him for the rest of his life, and as a father, he cannot let that happen. So Tokugawa understands what mistake he was about to make and tells his gunmen to stop. Pickle holds his palm of his hands together and acts as if he is praying for Katsumi's soul before eating him. This is the most common gesture to all of mankind, and since the human's existence, they have held their palm of the hand together to pray when faced with forces they cannot understand or control, even when encountering unfathomable evil or inexplicable kindness. Humans have brought the palm of their hands together. What lays on the ground before Pickle is although a trophy of war, but it is also his friend too. That's why Pickle held the palm of his hands to hope for his friend to reach a better place. Although Pickle is a savage, but he is still a human. The primitive man's entire life was challenging and he fought day after day to win, to eat, and most importantly, to survive. In that age of constant battles, Pickle, although, had no scarcity of food nor the lack of opponents. But he lacked a friend back then. He was fighting the heaviest of the heavyweights, so he didn't hold back. He smiled and took lives of those who were far larger and powerful than he is, and that made him proud. But now he is facing a new and different kind of enemy. An enemy smaller than his size, an enemy of his own race, who has small feet and delicate. But even with a weak appearance, that small man's attacks has been more powerful than the strike of T-Rex. That is why Pickle is expressing his acknowledgement of Katsumi's strength and thanks him wholeheartedly for sacrificing himself. Katsumi, through his own strength of will and enormous effort, had turned himself into a powerful fighter, and despite his small hands and feet, he had transformed those small, soft things into fangs, horns, and claws like the primitive beings. Such an achievement is a priceless treasure to mankind, but it was the treasure that Katsumi offered Pickle. Pickle recognizes his effort, sacrifice, weakness, treasure, friendship, and that's why Pickle, for the first time in his life, chooses to withdraw from the battlefield with an empty stomach, yet Pickle's body gets filled with a strange feeling of contentment. Later, when Pain's subordinates come to pick up Katsumi's dead body from the ground, they see that stadium that is filled with 55,000 members of Shinsekai Ki Air at school moments ago are all on their knees bowing to their late chairman and his great deeds. So Katsumi finally has managed to achieve something great, like his father Dappo. I bet he is happy in his afterlife, unable to bear the thought of looking down on their fallen leader from above. Everyone without any spoken command closes their eyes and falls on their knees. With this gesture, everyone shows their devotion and respect towards Katsumi. Anyway, the three subordinates of Pain brings Katsumi's unconscious body to Dappo and the others. Seeing Katsumi's dead body, Baki gets filled with regrets as he begins to think that if only he fought Pickle before Katsumi, things could have ended differently. No one thought that this spoiled, carefree man would turn to be such an inspiring leader to so many people. Even though Dappo and Katsumi are not tied by blood, Dappo is proud of his son and is thankful that he adopted and raised such an honorable man. Dappo once thought that it was he himself who had set Katsumi on this path of revenge when he told him about Ritsu's defeat. Back then, the comment that Katsumi made saying that not underestimating is the same as underestimating Dappo, since that his son wasted the naive boy he was before and had finally became a man. Dappo is right though, as Katsumi grew to be a great man who fought with his life in an unwinnable battle. So he looks at his son again and feels proud being his father. Tokugawa senses and hears a howl of suffering coming from the center of the earth and realizes that this is the anguish of the primitive man who just killed his friend. Pickle may be uninjured physically, but this battle clearly has left a deep wound inside him. Some days later, it's revealed that Katsumi has actually survived thanks to the medical technology, and no longer has his arm, just like Ritsu, who no longer has a leg. Speaking of Ritsu, he makes Chinese tea for Katsumi and serves him, saying it will help him recover quickly. Katsumi thanks him for his undying and dire service these past days at the hospital and promises to make him one day in return, considering that Katsumi has suffered the loss of his right arm. Ritsu still expresses his envy towards him as Katsumi is now a superior fighter than him. Katsumi understands why he is envious, as he knows that any martial artist would be jealous of his talent. But Katsumi doesn't think that he deserves that much attention, as the perfect Mach punch that he learned was all but thanks to Ritsu and Kaku. So since this was not a solo effort, Katsumi thinks Ritsu shouldn't be envious of him. Just like Ritsu and Kaku, many others who carried the legacy of Kung Fu and Karate for thousands upon thousands of years never stopped evolving and improving. Thanks to the predecessors who carried on the legacy, Katsumi knows the breath and the spirit of thousands, millions of them, and those techniques cherished by so many generations now live on within him. Katsumi wants to pass this legacy to someone else so that it exists for all of eternity, and feels regret that he failed to defeat even with all the power bestowed upon him. Baki enters the hospital room with red roses and asks him how he feels losing to Pickle. Ritsu gets mad at Baki for mocking someone who not only lost in front of 55,000 of his pupil, but also his arm. But Katsumi stops Ritsu from taking any unnecessary actions, telling him that it's fine. Tatsumi tells Baki that he already knows that he didn't have what it takes to score a victory, so he doesn't need to mock him anymore. But Katsumi asks Baki if he thinks he has got what it takes to beat Pickle after watching the fight between Katsumi and Pickle. Baki doesn't answer his question and instead grabs all of the flowers in the palm of his hand and crushes it so hard that droplet of rosewater falls from the crushed roses. Baki then spreads the droplet of the rose water in his hands and then puts his hands on Katsumi's face, making him realize that Baki has grown stronger. Meanwhile, at the streets of Tokyo, the ogre himself, Yujiro, reveals to be roaming aimlessly. He is merely walking, yet everyone around him stops and stares at the ogre in fear. The only reason this is happening is because Yujiro has the presence of a wild beast. For example, when a young impala, while walking alone through the African savanna, comes across a cheetah, it realizes that it's as good as dead because the cheetah can accelerate from 0 to over 68 miles per hour in less than 5 seconds. The impala immediately realizes its bad luck, and the situation gets so desperate for it that its entire body freezes and it begins to tremble and fear just like the impala. The citizens of Tokyo are trembling in fear as their instincts keep telling them that Yujiro is no less than a cheetah who can kill them in mere seconds. Although these people don't know who Yujiro is and have never seen him before, but the trillion cells in the body still reacts in fear before their minds could even tell them why their body is reacting that way. Anyway, Yujiro keeps moving forward and sees Dappo coming towards him, so he asks Dappo if he has come for a fight. Dappo explains that he is not here to pick up a fight and instead wants to have a private talk with him. Both of them goes to a bar nearby, and there Dappo first treats Yujiro. A glass of beer. Dappo thanks Yujiro for insulting Katsumi back when they first saw Pickle together, as he thinks that because of Yujiro's insult, something in Katsumi changed and he turned out to be a better man. Dappo explains to Yujiro that after that interaction, his son changed his ways for better and finally became an honorable man and a leader. The bartender skillfully makes the drink for the two of them and serves it to Yujiro first. Yujiro taps the table with his fingers and makes the wine glass come floating to his mouth. Flexing on the bartender after finishing the drink, Yujiro tells Dappo that it doesn't matter if a cat has suddenly turned into a lion. Katsumi is still a pampered good-for-nothing punk in his eyes. But Yujiro admits that Katsumi did well against Pickle, revealing that he also watched the fight between them. Still, Yujiro thinks that Dappo has made a crucial mistake with Katsumi, and tells him that he was far too merciful or tolerant than expected towards him. Dappo admits that he is less strict as a father than Yujiro is to Baki, but that doesn't mean that he is the good father. Yujiro then moves on from the conversation and asks the bartender to make him a glass of a 10-year-old special wine. The bartender asks how he would like the drink and then reply. Yujiro tells him to just hand him the bottle. He then takes the bottle in his hand, rips off the back of the bottle, and pours the entire thing in a beer glass. The bartender can't believe that Yujiro is just going to drink $1,000 worth of bottle of scotch, but he can't say anything as he knows that is going to be a death wish. After drinking the entire glass of scotch, Yujiro asks Doppo if he finally admits that he was too soft on Katsumi. Doppo explains that he was indeed too busy being amazed by Katsumi's progress as a martial artist that he forgot what kind of person he himself was. In addition, Doppo tells him that watching his son grow, develop in leaps and bounds, and seeing how easy it was for Katsumi to make such phenomenal progress in so less time, made him forget the duty as a father and as a martial artist. Doppo knows that as a martial artist, one can never be easygoing, not even to their own flesh and blood, and he has learned this lesson the hard way, because if he treated Katsumi more strictly, just maybe he wouldn't have lost his arm against Pickle. But knowing all the principles of martial arts, Doppo still turned soft and sentimental as he watched his little boy, Katsumi, grow as a man. Yujiro lights up a cigarette and does something that causes cancer. Don't do things like Yujiro kids and watch anime recaps. Instead, Ejiro tells Doppo to not feel bad anymore, as what's important is that he has finally admitted his mistakes. Yujiro then talks about Pickle and how he was first discovered at the buried deep beneath the ground under Colorado. In an old salt mine, now that this primitive man has revived, Yujiro believes that this signifies something. Doppo writes the details of Pickle's rebirth, how long he was asleep, and dividing it by 50, which is the total year of martial artists can fight. The answer comes to 1 in 3,800,000. So mathematically speaking, the martial artists have only a 1 in 1.38 million chance of succeeding against Pickle, so it's clearly a challenge for Doppo and Yujiro, as they know that only them two are strong enough to take on Pickle. After coming out of the bar, Doppo tells Yujiro that this might be the perfect chance for them to settle who is the strongest of all time by defeating the primitive man. At Baki's house, he trains against an imaginary enemy that he even can't picture properly and reveals that he is actually imagining Pickle as his imaginary opponent. Baki wonders why he can't picture someone who he has seen with his eyes when suddenly Ritsu comes there, interrupting his training, and asks him if this is his personal training grounds. Before Baki can ask him how strong Pickle is, Ritsu tells him that both he and Katsumi doesn't have a clue about Pickle's limits. Baki begins to shake in excitement and even his hair starts to glow, just like his father Yujiro. Baki explains that he can no longer resist the urge of fighting as he realizes that he might be the one to make Pickle reveal his true potential. So he decides to fight Pickle the very next morning. In the meantime, Jack comes there to fight with Primitive Man, thinking he out of all people can beat him. That brings the episode to an end. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share.